Rightio then, we are back looking at the Premier League. It's not started yet, we've still got a couple of weeks before the old Premier League begins, but fixtures have been released. We know who will be playing, when will we be playing, and some dates to really get excited for. So we're going to see if I can predict how the Premier League table will look after the first 5 weeks. Now this is an idea that I've stolen from Callum Fowler, the EFL expert. He's done this for League One and the Championship, and I thought I'd steal the idea for the Premier League, as that's where the boys in red are playing, even if this is a yellow shirt. Yeah, I'm just going to jump straight into it. Got all the fixtures here on this website, worldfootball.net. They've got a table calculator for many leagues, as you can see at the top here, and we're going to attempt to predict the Premier League's first 5 weeks. We're going to start off with the first fixture, the one that's kicking off the 25-26 Premier League season. It is Liverpool versus Bournemouth. The champions of England facing off against Bournemouth. Should be an interesting fixture. I mean, Liverpool, they've been very active in the window so far. They've let Trent Alexander-Arnold go, as well as Konsa and Kelleher. Both left the club as well. They've been very active with signings, bringing in Florian Wirtz, Milos Kerkez and Frimpong, among a few others. But they've also got the likes of Harvey Elliott, Darwin Núñez, Kostas Tsimikas, and Andy Robertson, who could all leave the club before the season starts. But all in all, a solid window so far. Bournemouth, on the other hand, have seen Huijsen and Kerkez depart. Obviously, Kerkez joining Liverpool. Kepa is not returning to the club. He's gone to join Arsenal. And there's a lot of interest in Semenyo, who was one of their best players last season. So it's a very tough one. I think Liverpool are looking like a very strong side. They're probably going to make more signings as well before the season starts. I'm going to say 3-1 to Liverpool. It's at Anfield. Bournemouth have lost some of their core defenders. Could lose some of their attacking threat as well. Whereas Liverpool have really just strengthened. I don't think losing Alexander-Arnold will be that big of a loss, as we know he wasn't really that good at defending. Frimpong isn't either, in all fairness, but I don't see the departure of Trent being that big of a loss for Liverpool, personally at least. We then move on to the Saturday fixtures, and the first one is Aston Villa versus Newcastle. And now these are two teams that haven't been very active in the window so far at time of recording. Newcastle have tried to sign multiple players, but nobody wants to join them. They've also lowballed us for Anthony Elanga. Get that budget up if you want to sign him, lads, but I don't think he's going anywhere. And much the same with Villa. They've not signed anyone at the moment, as far as I'm aware. And Emi Martinez could also depart by the time this game comes around. These are both very good sides, though. Both have qualified for Europe next season. Both in the Champions League, if I'm not mistaken. I think Villa may be in the Europa League, though. Not too sure, can't quite remember. Either way, they're both playing in Europe. Last time Newcastle did that, they struggled with depth. I imagine they'd like to sign some players, but again, nobody wants to sign for them. And Villa have shown they can juggle European football and a top 4, top 6 push. So they should be pretty good. I mean, Watkins may leave if the right offer comes in for him. I know a couple of clubs sniffing around, but he's still at the club at this point. Asensio and Rashford have left. Asensio probably the best of the two they bought in there. Villa Park. Newcastle still have Isak at the moment, but again, much like Watkins, wanted by a lot of clubs, Liverpool included, who could sign him if they've got the funds. At point of writing, I think Newcastle will win that game 2-1. They've just got a better squad, in my opinion. Better first team. But you never know with what signings and what business could happen between now and then. It remains to be seen. Then move on to Brighton versus Fulham. So Brighton have seen João Pedro and Valentin Barco depart. João Pedro will be a big miss for Brighton. He was a very important cog in their team, one of their top goal scorers last season. Fulham have not really done anything at all, to be honest. But Brighton did sign Greek wonder kid Kostoulis, who looks quite good for Olympiacos. There is a slight possibility they do play in the Conference League next season if Crystal Palace get kicked out. But that still remains to be seen, so we can't really talk on that. Tough one, but I think Brighton have this. I'm giving them 1-0. Fulham's attack doesn't really excite me at the moment. They've not really signed any thrilling attacking players. They don't really have anyone there that really jumps out to me as a world beater or something like that, a good attacking player. And I think Brighton just have a bit more about them to beat Fulham, although João Pedro has left the club. Will be interesting to see nonetheless. Maybe Evan Ferguson can get back to his best. Who knows? And then we've got my beloved Nottingham Forest playing against our arch rivals Brentford. They're not really our rivals, but we don't get along, quite frankly. We're playing with the City Ground though, which is always a good place to start. They beat us at home last season with Visser. They just demolished us in general, to be honest. But in terms of the window, things haven't really been happening for either club. Forest have sold Omar Madeli to Strasbourg. He was on loan there for the second half of last season, didn't really play much for us, so not a big loss. Although for depth, he would have been pretty decent for the Conference League, I felt. We've not really signed anyone officially. We have a couple of players waiting in the wings, most notably Igor Jesus, however you want to pronounce it, from Botafogo, scored against PSG and Seattle Sounders in the Club World Cup. He is set to join the team. We have signed him. It's all but announced, so he'll be here before the start of the season. Brentford, on the other hand, have seen Thomas Frank depart and have appointed their former set-piece coach as manager, which is a very interesting appointment, but he's very untested, so be very interesting to see how he does. But Brentford like to promote from within. That's what happened with Frank, so remains to be seen how he will do, but very untested. I guess pre-season will give us a little window into that. I mean, they've signed Kelleher and Coyote, but they've sold Flecken, and Norgard is also set to leave for Arsenal, with a lot of interest surrounding Mbeumo and Visser as well. Will they be at the club by the time the start of the season rolls around? Who knows? Visser possibly. Mbeumo, it's not looking likely. A couple of big clubs sniffing around him. I'm backing the boys in red to start off the season with a win, banish our Brentford hoodoo, and I think we'll win 2-1. Sunderland and West Ham. Sunderland obviously just been promoted to the Premier League, coming up through the playoffs, and they've doing a little bit of business. They've been interesting quite a few players. They've signed Lafay on a permanent alongside Habib Diarra, with Joe Bellingham and Tom Watson departing. Not really massive loss. Joe Bellingham is definitely the biggest loss of the two, but Tom Watson wasn't too bad, to be fair. West Ham have not been looking that good. They've signed Tobido, but they've had many players out of contract, and Ramsday is linked as well, who has a lot of relegations on his CV. And just Graham Potter's West Ham does not inspire me at all. But Sunderland are just coming from the Championship. It is a home game at the Stadium of Light, so that is something they've got going for them. West Ham are established Premier League club though, but they don't really have that good of a side. You know, they've got Kudus, Paqueta, Somerville, some decent players, Hulkrug as well. They had a brilliant window last season. This one they've been a bit more quiet, but I imagine it will pick up. I'm going to say a 1-1 draw. I think Sunderland have it in them to hold West Ham to a draw, especially at home. The home advantage will be massive for them this season. They've got a really good atmosphere, large attendances. I think they can grab a draw against West Ham to kick off their Premier League campaign. Moving on to Tottenham versus Burnley. So Tottenham obviously sacked Postecoglou after he won them the Europa League. They brought in Thomas Frank from Brentford, good manager, proven in the Premier League. Matthias Tell and Kevin Danso have been made permanent. Sold Højbjerg, very much heavily interested in Mbeumo, Visser, Esse and Semenyo, all linked but none of them are signed as of yet. Whereas Burnley have been pretty active in the window, bringing a fair few signings. The main ones are Twan Zebe, Zian Fleming making permanent, and Edwards from Sporting Portugal, and Scott Parker as their manager, which doesn't have a great Premier League record if we're being real. I think Tottenham will look to bounce back after the dreadful league finish they had under Ange last season. I think Thomas Frank is a good manager and will be able to do that for them. Scott Parker, he plays very defensive football, saying that he lost 9-0 to Liverpool when he was Bournemouth manager. I think Tottenham will look like a much better side. I'm going to say 2-0 to Spurs. It's in North London as well, so they'll always have that home advantage. Yeah, should be easy game for Spurs. Then we've got Wolves versus Manchester City to tie up the Saturday fixtures. Now, it's at home for Wolves at the Molineux. They've made Strand Larsen permanent. Very good signing. Would have liked him at Forest if Wolves didn't make that a permanent, if that wasn't the offer they had in place. They've also signed Fer Lopez as well from Celta Vigo. Don't know anything about him. He's just the only player they've brought in alongside Strand Larsen. But they have seen the likes of Cunha, Ike Nouri and Sarabia depart. 3 very big players for them, which is not good. Ike Nouri joining City. Man City have been very active in the window. They've signed Reinders, Aït-Nouri and Ryan Cherki, but I've seen the likes of KDB and Scott Carson depart. Big departures, you know, Scott Carson, third choice keeper for City, but still looked like a class lad to have around the club. And KDB, just a phenomenal player, really, and he's fucked off to Italy. So a big loss for City. Also, the likes of Grealish maybe leaving. Bernardo Silva as well has been linked away. So they could see more players depart. And yeah, I don't think much is going to happen for Wolves. I'm going to say 3-0 to City. Wolves, they looked better with Vitor Pereira in charge. But with the likes of Cunha and Aït-Nouri departing, they just don't have that attacking threat that they had with Cunha. And Aït-Nouri was a solid player as well. So can't see it happening for Wolves here. I think City will win this. I think City are back. They're going to be challenging Liverpool for the title here. Just an early prediction there for you. All right, move on to the Sunday fixtures. We've got Chelsea versus Crystal Palace. Chelsea once again being very active in the window, signing João Pedro, Liam Delap, Estavio being the main signings among others. Kepa has departed for Arsenal, and they're linked to another 10 billion players who they're probably going to sign about half of and play about none of. So you never know. But the signings for João Pedro and Liam Delap, very greedy. If you've watched my channel, you know I would have loved Delap to sign for Forest, but that just wasn't the case as Chelsea were there. Palace, on the other hand, have not been very active in the window at all. A couple of free agents have departed. Heavy links with Ousmane Diomande. He may have signed by the time you see this video, but for now, he has not. And Eze has been linked away with many a club, as has Jean-Philippe Mateta as well. At Stamford Bridge, Crystal Palace got off to a really slow start last season. I think that is run-of-the-mill for Glasner from previous experiences. I think we will see Chelsea win, not giving Palace 11 goals. I think it'll be 2-1 for Chelsea. Fairly comfortable for them, I think. And then we move on to Manchester United versus Arsenal. Pretty big game, some big names involved. Man United have obviously signed Cunha, big addition for them. They want Mbeumo as well. Watkins and Gyökeres have also been linked, and I've seen a couple of free agents depart. You know, nothing too major. Jadon Sancho does currently play for the club though, so you know they have that against them. Arsenal, on the other hand, have been fairly active in the window. They've signed Kepa officially, with Norgard and Zubimendi heavily linked, essentially signed already, all but announced. Gyökeres and Benjamin Šeško have also been linked for that striker position they desperately need to fill, and Thomas Partey has left the club. Thank God for that. He was a decent player for them in all fairness, but he's also not a very nice man. Unnamed 31-year-old. Thank God he's fucked off. I think Arsenal win this. I think Man United will score, but I think it's going to be a fairly comfortable game for Arsenal. They're very good under Arteta. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Yeah, giving it to Arsenal. And then on Monday, newly promoted Leeds United play Everton. Now for Leeds, they do have something against them. That is Daniel Farke still in charge. Doesn't do well in the Prem. There were talks they may sack him before the season starts, but as of now, that has not happened, but probably should. Bijol and Bornau have signed, two players I know nothing about, but they've signed them. And Christensen has been sold, with a few free agents departing as well. For Everton, they're obviously moving into their new stadium, the Brownlee Moor Dock. This we played at Ellen Road though, so that doesn't really matter. They've signed Alcaraz, not the tennis player, and many free agents have departed as well. But Moisey's in charge, and he knows what to do. Atmosphere is going to be crazy. Ellen Road, they're finally back in the Premier League after 2 absent seasons, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm definitely giving them a goal. And I'm giving Everton a goal as well. I think it'll be a 1-1 draw. Ellen Road will be a massive factor in that. So these are the results I've predicted. We're going to calculate it now, and then we'll see what the table looks like after the first game week. So this is what we're looking at here. How far down can I get? We can get to 17th. So Manchester City, top of the league, 3 goals, 1 win, followed by Arsenal and Liverpool and Spurs, as you'd expect. Newcastle United in 5th, with Forest in 6th, just above Chelsea. You can hold that for once. And then Brighton just below them. Then West Ham and Everton make up the top half, with newly promoted Sunderland and Leeds just sitting below them in 11th and 12th. In the relegation zone, we've got Wolves, Burnley, and Manchester United. Class. I like that. And then we're going to predict the other 4 game weeks a bit quicker than what we have done here. We're not going to look at the table until they've all been predicted. So, Bournemouth Wolves. I think that's an easy Bournemouth win. I'm going to say 2-0 to there. We'll say 2-1. Their defence isn't as good as it was. Palace versus Nottingham Forest. Tough one here. I'm going to say 1-1 draw, like the repeat of the Selhurst Park result last season. Arsenal versus Leeds. Should be fairly comfortable. I'm going to go 2-0 to Arsenal at the Emirates as well. Brentford, Villa. Ooh, that's a bit of a spicy one here. I'm going to say 1-0 to Villa, I think. No, we'll say 2-1 to Villa. I think Brentford will grab a goal with the players they've got currently. Burnley, Sunderland. Ooh, I can't remember the results off the top of my head from the Championship last season. Who is the better? I think Burnley the better side at the moment. They obviously got promoted automatically over Sunderland, who went into the playoffs. Should be a pretty even game, and I'm giving it Burnley 2-1. Everton versus Brighton at the Bramley-Moore Dock. First Premier League match at the new stadium for Everton. I think the atmosphere is going to be insane. I've seen a lot of renders, a lot of reports that the atmosphere is one of the main things behind the design of the stadium, so I think it's going to be mental, and I will give it to Everton. I'm giving them a 2-1. Fulham versus Manchester United. That's going to be a 1-1 draw for me. I just feel like it will. Ooh, Man City Tottenham at the Etihad. Oh, I think Tottenham win this 2-1. Tottenham always seem to have City's number, and I think that'll continue here. Newcastle Liverpool. I'm 3-1 to Liverpool again. And then West Ham Chelsea. That's got 2-0 Chelsea written all over it. All right, we're going to calculate that and move on to numero 3. We're going to start off with Sunderland Brentford. Home atmosphere for Sunderland will be important, but I think they lose to Brentford. Aston Villa Crystal Palace. Another pretty interesting clash at Villa Park. I'm going to give it to Palace 1-0, I think. Brighton Man City. Ooh, that's a pretty good one as well. I do think Brighton score, but I think City will score more. Chelsea Fulham, little West London derby here. Another win for Chelsea. 2-1, I think. Ooh, Liverpool Arsenal, big game at Anfield. I'm going 4-2. Big results. Leeds United Newcastle. Okay, 2 fairly good fan bases in my opinion, facing off against each other here at Elland Road. I like what I'm seeing. Newcastle obviously the better side. I'm going 3-1 to Newcastle. Man United Burnley. I think Manchester United win this one 2-0. Their first win of the season. Congratulations, lads. Nottingham Forest West Ham. Beat them at home last season and at their gaff as well. We're looking very good. 2-1. I think West Ham will score, in all fairness. Actually, no, I don't. 2-0. Spurs Bournemouth. Pretty good clash there as well. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for Tottenham. And then Wolves Everton, I think, will be a 1-1 draw, personally. Calculate that one and move on to game week 4. Got a little South Coast derby. It's not really, but Bournemouth Brighton. I think Brighton win this 2-1. Crystal Palace Sunderland at Selhurst Park. That is a tasty match. I think Sunderland will lose again, but I think they grab a goal. I think Palace grab 3 though. Arsenal Nottingham Forest. Ooh, our first real proper test. And it's again in the capital. As much as I'd like to think we win, I think it will be a 2-2 draw. I'm not delusional. Brentford Chelsea, another little West London derby here. And again, I think Chelsea win. Or do I? No, I think Chelsea draw here, you know. I think Brentford will just have a little bit about them that will grab them a draw against Chelsea. Nothing more behind that. 3-0 win for Liverpool against Burnley. Everton, Aston Villa, back at Bramley-Moore Dock. I do think Villa will win this 2-1 though. Depends how the atmosphere is at Bramley-Moore Dock, I suppose. And obviously what players are bought in for both clubs. Fulham, Leeds United at Craven Cottage. That's got 1-1 written all over it. Oh, Manchester derby here between, obviously, Man City and Man United at the Etihad. I think it's going to be a close game. The team, Man United will always turn up for this fixture, but I think City win 3-2. Newcastle Wolves, that's got 2-0 at St James's Park. And then West Ham Tottenham, another little London derby. I'm going to give it to Spurs 2-1. And finally, Game Week 5, the final set of fixtures we'll be predicting. We're going to start off with Bournemouth versus Newcastle. I do think Newcastle win this 2-1. Sunderland Villa at the Stadium of Light. Tasty fixture. Villa are definitely the better side here. I'm going to say 3-1 to Villa. Brighton versus Spurs at the Amex. I'm banking on Tottenham being a better side under Frank than they were under Ange, which is why I've been giving them more wins here. I think they do drop points to Brighton though for some reason. 1-1 draw. Big old clash between Arsenal and Man City here at the Emirates. Recently, Arsenal have had City's number, and it's been a joy to watch. And I think the same will continue here. I'm going 3-2, much like a repeat of the Manchester derby. Nottingham Forest then travel to Turf Moor to face Burnley, in which I think we win 3-1. I'm confident in the boys, I must say. And then move on to Fulham versus Brentford, another West London derby, if I'm not mistaken. Not a big one, of course, but should be a decent game. I think Fulham win that 2-1. Liverpool versus Everton, the old Merseyside derby. Lovely little clash there. I do think Liverpool win at Anfield. I think it will be 3-2. I think Everton grab 2 goals. You know, they're always up for a derby. Man United Chelsea. Pretty classic clash there. I think Man United will win this one 2-1. I think they're going to start to pick up form as they go into the season. And for some reason, I think they'll beat Chelsea. West Ham Crystal Palace. I think it's going to be a draw between the two London sides. And then Wolves Leeds. I think Wolves will grab a 2-1 win at the Molineux. Let's calculate it and see what the table is looking like. I will zoom out a bit so we can get the full table as well. Right. So this is how I see the Premier League looking after Game Week 5. Liverpool leading in pole position with 5 wins, 0 losses. They're then followed by Spurs, who have a win and a draw, who have 4 wins and a draw, with Newcastle in third on 4 wins and 1 loss. Same as Villa, 4 wins and 1 loss. Finish off the Champions League spots. Nottingham Forest are in 5th, 1 point behind Villa and Newcastle with 3 wins, 2 draws and 0 losses. Arsenal, Chelsea, City and Man United make up 6th to 9th, with Brighton finishing off the top half. Their rivals Palace are just below them, with Everton, Fulham and Brentford. Wolves, Bournemouth and Burnley just about surviving, but probably in a relegation scrap, with Leeds United, West Ham and Sunderland all in the relegation zone, with Sunderland having a measly point to their name. Yeah, no, this looks exactly like what'll happen. I've just looked into the future. This is exactly what we're getting. No bias whatsoever. No bias whatsoever. But yeah, it's an interesting experiment. I know I've given a lot of teams a lot of 2-1s, but I think that is just a default scoreline to go to, because I think most teams will score, in all fairness. But yeah, what do you think? Do you agree with my predictions? Do you think Nottingham Forest should be higher? Do you think that maybe, you know, Man United should be in the relegation zone? Who knows? I would like to know what you think regarding these predictions. Once again, massive thank you to Callum Fowler for inventing this idea, I guess. He's the only person I've seen doing it. Cheers, lad. I didn't ask for permission, but I'm sure you don't mind. Hopefully. And yeah, I shall see you guys in the next one. Peace.